Do you have a suggestion for a Rockstar Impact Podcast guest? Go to impactpodcast.com and just click Be a Guest to recommend someone today. This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by ERI. ERI has a mission to protect people, the planet, and your privacy, and is the largest fully integrated IT and electronics asset disposition provider and cybersecurity-focused hardware destruction company in the United States, and maybe even the world. For more information on how ERI can help your business properly dispose of outdated electronic hardware devices, please visit eridirect.com. This episode of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by Closed Loop Partners. Closed Loop Partners is a leading circular economy investor in the United States with an extensive network of Fortune 500 corporate investors, family offices, institutional investors, industry experts, and impact partners. Closed Loop's platform spans the arc of capital from venture capital to private equity, bridging gaps and fostering synergies to scale the circular economy. To find Closed Loop Partners, please go to www.closedlooppartners.com. Welcome to another edition of the Impact Podcast. This is a special edition of the Impact because we're going to be talking about some new subjects we've never touched on before. We've got Andy Tay with us. He's the global lead of Accenture Cloud First. Welcome to the Impact Podcast, Andy.
John, thank you so much. It's absolutely great being here. I've listened to a couple of these and they're really, really impactful. And I'm just super glad to join you today.
Well, we're super glad you're here, and you're going to be talking about these very, very relevant and timely and important issues that you're an expert in, and I'm certainly not. But before we get there, I'd love you to share a little bit about the Andy Tay story. Where did you grow up? How did you get on this very important and relevant journey that you're on, and how did you end up where you are today?
Oh, gosh, that's a long one, but I'll try and keep it short and brief here, John. You know, I was born and raised in Ghana, West Africa. To a Scottish mother and a Ghanaian father. And, after a good few years in Ghana, they carted me off to a boys' boarding school in Oxford in England. And then I did my sort of school years there and my university years in Leicester, which is 100 miles north of London, played a bunch of rugby. I joined the consulting world with Price Waterhouse a good few years ago, just after university. And then I went on to do my master's in Bristol in the UK, and then joined Accenture in the south of France. We have an engineering hub in the south of France. And at the time it was sort of a showcase center for the very best of our capabilities, to showcase to our clients, but also to innovate. But we also had a team of people whose job it was to just fly around the world and sort of, fix the toughest or take on the toughest, hardest technical engineering problems. And I fell into that. And, thankfully, Accenture invested in me and sort of, schooled me up from a newbie in technology to, somebody who might be somewhat dangerous.
And for our listeners and viewers who aren't familiar with Accenture, of course, one of the greatest brands in consulting on the planet, over $64 billion in revenue, over 740,000 employees, and you serve over 120 countries. So the reach and the visibility that your brand has, and that vis-a-vis than you have because of what you do, is massive.
It's sizable. We're very intentional on our posture, working in a number of countries. It is broad. It is wide. But at the same time, we're very intentional in making sure that we can get our solutions to our clients as quickly as we can. So we cut through a lot of the churn, as you would imagine, in a large company of 750,000 people. You would imagine that there could be some difficulties, but we're very intentional in making sure that we get out of our own way.
So you're the global lead for Accenture Cloud First. Can you just, on a macro basis, frame that up? What does that mean? What does your title mean? And what does being the global lead of that sector mean?
Well, the cloud is always evolving, so even I question sometimes, what does that mean, and what is my remit? I'm just kidding. As you know, John, the cloud has been something that's been with us in the technology world for some time now. And my job in Accenture now is to really look at all aspects of the cloud business, the cloud sort of estate, so to speak, working with our ecosystem partners. So that includes, sort of the hyperscalers, both on the public side and now increasingly on the private side, to help stitch together hybrid solutions. And so my job is to really bring the very best of Accenture capabilities from our technology innovation areas to our strategy, our consulting, all our sort of capabilities, bring the best of Accenture, marry it with the best of the hyperscaler and the technical sort of partners in the world, and really be innovative in bringing solutions to our clients to help tackle their problems, be it how do I get more revenue, or how do I sort of drive more efficiency, or how do I maybe think about sustainability in a different way, or how can I maybe sort of attract more of my customers and drive upsell, cross-sell opportunities.
Understand. So let's then talk about, like, there's not a day that I don't open up my browser, or any of us open up our browser, or flip on the telly and watch Bloomberg or any of the other great networks, and we don't hear about AI or generative AI and things of that such. How does what you do tie into this seemingly new, but it's not a new, technological revolution? The technological revolution dates back, of course, but this new generation of technology that is on everyone's mind and on the stock market's mind. And you have the rise of NVIDIA and all this other stuff. And also, Sam Altman and what he's doing. How does all of that fit within the ecosystem that you work and advise in?
It's you sort of slap bang in touching absolutely every aspect of what I do and what my team does. If you think about sort of that sort of wave of innovation that you sort of, as you said, you put on your TV or your radio, and it's generative AI here, and even on your phone.
It's all there.
If you think about that, we've sort of I would say focused on an element that we're calling the digital core, and that's really around the sort of foundational elements of a company in I would say maybe three core distinct groups. And the first group is sort of that digital foundation, sort of what is your infrastructure, and how are you thinking about the cloud, and how you're managing across your full estate, and what about your security postures? Cybersecurity, big area. And how do you integrate all your systems? So that's sort of foundational layer. And so my team will go in and help our clients think about that. And then the second layer is really around, once you've sort of got that foundation, how do you now think about the data and the AI, and where is your AI, and what should the AI be doing, and what is it doing? How do you measure it? And how do you ensure perhaps bias is taken out of your system, and all of that? And so our team will engage to bring the best AI capabilities to our clients, and the best data thinking, best practices to our clients, and sort of help them think about that. And then the third layer will be sort of the digital platforms that can sit on top of that data and AI platform, which itself sits on top of that digital foundation. And so right across that stack of digital core, my team operates across, up and down, but also right across, and bringing all the very best of our sort of ecosystem partners to our clients.
So let me get this straight, though. Typically, when we talk about expertise or greatness in any industry, and obviously for you to ascend to the leadership that you have at Accenture as the global lead of Accenture Cloud First, you are an expert. You're flat out an expert. And to me, when someone becomes an expert, it's because of their ability. Let's just call it, what Jordan and what Brady and all the greatest sports icons that we know call. But this also goes in business. It's about pattern recognition. How are you able to integrate your expertise and have the ability to hold in one part of your brain the pattern recognition to understand what to apply to a new Accenture client or an existing Accenture client that needs the digital core type of consulting that you do and your team does, but at the same time hold in suspended animation that the ever-changing and fast-changing nature of generative AI and what's going on in the technology world, because it seems as though, I'm 62 now, Andy. It seems as though technology is changing. Moore's law is almost out the window, and it's changing at breathtaking speeds. So, how do you keep your expertise, understanding that you are the expert and your team are the experts, and Accenture is the expert at digital core and all the things that you just laid out that you guys do so well, but also stay the expert when the technology that you're consulting on is ever changing and so fast?
John, that's such a powerful question. Thanks for asking that. Pattern recognition, yes, absolutely. It, as you mentioned, in these great sports people, they will see the pattern and they've sort of already calculated what their next response is. But I would also argue, John, that the best sports people out there also have pattern adoption. They can quickly see new patterns that are emerging and adjust. And the only way they learn to adjust is by learning. And that's what we in Accenture really focus on. We consistently focus less on being the expert and more on just being learners. And so we invest strongly in our people. And when the sort of generative AI boom happened, we had already been investing about $3 billion in our AI capabilities, investing in the partnerships I spoke about, investing in the solutions that we pre-build for our clients, and investing in our people. And so how do we maybe go to a client and, apply the best practice or see new patterns and adjust and build new practice? I would say it's really a mix of keeping that sort of digital core element, right at the fore, and always working on it, always working on it, harvesting best practices, but also looking at the impact on the workforce and people. It's so super important to look beyond the technology and to see how, what will it enable people to do, and what are the impacts on processes. So it goes beyond technology. And then lastly, I'd say it's important for our clients, and what we find works really well is for ourselves, is this sort of constant reinvention is becoming the strategy, the go-to strategy. If you have a strategy, it's best to have a strategy of constant reinvention, which allows you to have in the DNA of your team and your people and your culture, one of always learning and being able to adopt and adapt new technologies. And so it's a bit scary if you think of all the technology innovations coming at you. But like with all things in life, just staying with it, constantly staying with it, and constantly learning allows you to then bring the very best to your clients. And that's what I'm going to
backtrack and say, yeah, good for you. I think you're so right, because as I threw out Jordan and Brady, but as you said, Brady was the how do we say this the right way, the platinum version of a quarterback maybe 10 years ago. The great adopter, Mahomes, is probably now the new platinum version. And boy, nobody knows how to reinvent himself on a regular basis like a Mahomes. So I understand what you mean about constant learning and constant reinvention, and being open and flexible and to new changes and reapplying what you learned recently, and not getting stuck in legacy ideas and legacy processes and procedures. If you just joined us, we've got Andy Tay with us today. He's the global lead of Accenture Cloud First at Accenture. You can find Andy and all of his colleagues and what they're doing at Accenture Cloud First at www.accenture.com. Andy, that leads me then to the recent research you've done on the rate of change affecting businesses and what they need for continuous reinvention. If what you just said is critical to Accenture staying as the experts and as the great learners, and then the reappliers of what they've learned to their client base, what did you learn in that research, and what's now the new norm for your practice when you're consulting to all the great clients that you do around the world?
Well, firstly, there's sort of, you mentioned Mahomes and sort of, I'll maybe take you to my world, which is a little bit of rugby. And for me, it would be Dan Carter. And one of the things that I've always learned when watching Dan Carter over the years is his ability to adjust on the field of play. In every single game, regardless of who the opposition is, he'll find something. And so I think the first thing we've learned over the years is invest in people. If you invest in people, you get the best innovations and the best solutions that you can bring to your clients. And so, as I mentioned, we invested over $3 billion over 3 years ago, doubling our AI talent to, I think it's north of 80,000 people now. And then also standing up a sort of center for advanced AI. And so this sort of intentional, whether we call it intentional investment or something else, is the first thing we learned, is invest in a very intentional manner on your people and have them constantly learning. The other thing I would say that we sort of have picked up on is companies who have been equally intentional in building their digital core over the years and really investing not just on the technology, but also on their people, are the ones who have seen a sort of increase in value. And our research indicates that those in the very top quartile of our research indicates that if you get it right, if you sort of apply the three concepts of, boosting your investment, balancing your investment, and driving this intentional focus, if you get that right, you can drive up both your revenue, but also your profitability because you drive greater efficiencies. And so I think this sort of constant reinvention, the very intentional lens on different aspects of your business, including your people, your process, and your technology, is super, super important. And it's something that we've sort of been really focused on over the last few years.
And walk us through, without giving away names, of course, or brands, walk us through how it really works in the real world. Either an existing Accenture client or a new Accenture client, and you and your team are put onto it because they need help with regards to everything you do at Accenture Cloud First, digital core, and everything that means. Explain how it works. Fortune 50 company, Fortune 25 company, Fortune 100 company. Explain. Are you first with the C-suite? Are you first with the CISO? Who are you with first? Convincing them and showing them this is the path. We know the path forward. We've done this so many times. We're really good at this. Here's a potential path for you. Where does the process start and how does it evolve?
We pride ourselves on bringing the best of Accenture wherever we place the catch. Okay. So just in your sports analogy, the ball comes to you on the ground or the ball comes to you in the air, we still respond with the very best of Accenture. So it doesn't really matter if it comes from the CISO or the CEO or the CIO.
Got it.
From our perspective, the very first thing we do, John, is to try and really understand the client's challenge and the client's objective and what they're sort of pushing for in terms of their vision. We then will assemble the very best team as we understand it in terms of bringing the best of capabilities to our client, and that might bring people who are familiar with that client's industry, or people who are familiar with the technologies and the capabilities and the consultative skills needed for that industry, and then we'll sort of really start tackling and solutioning and really thinking about what's the right solution for this client, what technologies, what business processes, how do we ensure the right culture, what do we need to do around their people, what do we need to do around their ecosystem of partners, and on and on. And sort of look at it from a 360-degree lens of value that you need to bring to the client, be it financial or sustainable. I know that's a big area of yours. And we think about the holistic solution for the client and really have a customized solution for the client, which may bring things that we've built before in, but we'll wrap it with a level of customization for that context of the client. And so when you stitch all that together, you then have a sort of solution which would maybe urge the client to constantly embrace change. That be one of the things that we will always ensure. We'll push them to sort of ensure they've got alignment in their leadership, both on the technical leadership, but also their business side. We'll push them to ensure we've got or they've got the right modern digital core, as we touched on, and the right sort of strategic ecosystem partnerships are coming in to bring the best innovations, and then you're just working and constantly working to fine tune, and that's really the important thing. It's as you would know in your sports analogies, it's that constant grind, but also the tweaks that you make as the game goes on, really adjusting as the game goes on.
Talk a little about the C-suite, though. So I'm a CEO of a relatively small company comparatively speaking to the companies that you're used to consulting to. But I talk to a lot of C-suite folks, in my industry, outside of my industry, and because of the show, around the world. And so when they start thinking about technology and AI, I hear different reactions. First is they're scared. So two things that happen when folks get scared: either they freeze and don't do anything, or they lean into their fear and they bring someone like Andy Tay and his team on and Accenture on to help them work through it and come up with solutions. Secondarily, I hear a lot of folks come to me and say, I'm working with a great person like Andy, or a great company like Accenture, or pick another brand, and they're working with a team.
Is there another one?
I'm not sure. Let's assume there's not. Anyway, but then they worry about, are they doing enough as their board of directors, as fiduciaries as they are? They have a board and they have investors, and they're worried, are they doing enough given all the changes that are happening, or are they doing too much? So how do you coach? Because at the end of the day, you're a master coach. Really, if we're going to keep going back to sports, you're a coach on these adjustments. What's the balancing act, on sticking to the core mission and never forgetting that the mission is the mission, but also, as you said, being open and coaching them to embrace enough change so they could stay relevant, and, as you say, drive more profits and drive more revenue, which at the end of the day, every CEO wants to do.
It's amazing, isn't it? Sports, how it transcends everything. It's truly amazing.
It does.
We're a coach, but we're also maybe a player coach.
Right.
And as you do, you sometimes take your team, in this case, the C-suite, and you go and you have them see another team play, and so they can learn. And so, we will bring the best of our capabilities and experiences from their industry, but also from outside their industry, to walk them through what others have done to succeed, but also to show them what others have done when they failed and what they haven't done. We will show. So this is the player side of it. We will maybe show their teams and do it with them and work with them. And so now we're amping up their teams and their capabilities. Or we'll take them to another client and have that, sort of have them see live. And this might be client to client discussions. And so now they sort of have a network of like-minded people who are going through that journey. So there are sort of mechanisms that we'll employ, but really, I think the biggest thing that we try and do, John, is to have our clients know that the best success is simply to start, and to embrace that change. Just literally staying back could be the death of you. If you don't do something, it could literally be the death of you. And so, leaning into the change, leaning into that fear. And again, it's something that we all perhaps would, tell our kids, lean into that fear. And sometimes what you imagine is a bit too, it doesn't really exist, the fear or the concern. And we're seeing increasingly in all our research and in all our empirical evidence and all our work with our clients, the clients who embrace the change, who really focus in on both hardening their modern digital sort of estate, but also employing a constant strategy of reinvention, and also being very intentional around their people, and investing in their people. It's those clients that are seeing stronger gains on value, value for their stakeholders and their shareholders, be it on the revenue side or the efficiency side, or engagement, or their own people, where their people now have richer experiences. And so we recently worked with one of the world's leading fast food retailers, who was looking at how do we, and they were, I would say forward thinkers in thinking around, okay, today we've got foot traffic coming into our store to order something, and the foot traffic leaves, but tomorrow it's a car that's driving around, and the next day it's a car that has intelligence to tell the driver where to go, and should I place the order for you ahead of you going there, and do you want a hot coffee with that, or whatever it is. And so they were forward thinking in how is the experience of our customers changing, and how do we change the ability for our workers to serve those customers and the experiences. And so now you have the concept of edge AI, not just cloud in a data center, but cloud at the edge. You have AI coming in to pre-inform you that John is coming in for his favorite, fast food lunch menu thing. And you have a car that's informing you, and all of that. And so suddenly your experiences have changed. And so being able to sort of articulate for C-level, but your clients, that changing world and how others are reaping benefits is super important. And the only way sometimes to do that is not by just telling them, but by showing them. And so having them go and actually see it live in another, it could be another industry as well.
Got it. Because of where you sit, you get to have the beauty and the enjoyment of never being bored, because I assume you get to consult to so many different industries and really learn about those industries, which only makes your experience as both a business expert and leader even richer. Where's an industry that you haven't yet been asked to tackle that you're excited, hopefully, that you get the call one day to be able to go and tackle that industry?
Oh, that's a good one. I think I'll maybe stretch that as well. Sustainability is an area that I've always wanted to sort of just learn more and understand more, because I'm in my industry right now, seeing elements where, and we have this concept where it's sustainability by technology. And so that's using technology innovation to drive sustainable outcomes. But we've also got this concept of sustainability in technology. And with generative AI, using all the data, it has to sit somewhere. And it has to be there has to be power that's allowing that data to traverse from one system to your computer screen. And that consumes energy. And so this sort of concept of sustainability in technology, or sustainability by technology, it's something that I have to say increasingly fascinates me. I know that's an area of interest to you. So please know that you are ahead of your time in knowing a space. But I will tell you, John, it's a space that we address it, and we've looked at it for many years. So personally, as a company, we're ahead of it. But personally, it's something that I want to double down on.
Well, it's fascinating you say that, because when you were speaking about as your mentorship and coaching and leadership with other leaders around the world, or C-suite folks, and you're pushing them along when they come to you for help, like you said, the worst thing they could do is inaction, because they could quickly become irrelevant and go away. The same thing goes with sustainability now. Sustainability now has become just another term for resiliency. And really without, as you point out, the digital core and everything that you're doing, there's no organization without the suite of services that you're offering, and that you're advising them to do and do well. Without those, they're going to be irrelevant also quickly, and they're not going to be resilient for sure. So there's a great analogy between sustainability and what you're doing at Accenture Cloud First. A tremendous. Talk a little bit about that subsector in what you do on cybersecurity. We've had 3 of the biggest breaches in the history of the world in the last 90 days, and they used to be cover stories and headlines. No longer. Is cybersecurity still the threat to organizations and nation states and the Homeland Security as it was 4 or 5 years ago? Or is that waning? Or is it just not getting the publicity it used to, but still as important as ever before?
No, with any technology wave, the threat just increases, because sometimes the early adopters are the nefarious actors, and if we sort of, as a sort of community, don't embrace those technology waves and really figure out how to sort of work with them and sort of blockade or counteract those nefarious actors, you start losing out. And so for us. This sort of, and we've set up a security practice that invests strongly in cybersecurity capabilities and people, processes, and technologies, to bring all of that to our clients to safeguard them. And we do that not just ourselves. Oftentimes in the world of security, if you do it yourself, you're open up to vulnerabilities. And so we do it in a very intentional way with our partners, our ecosystem partners, and so we will work with them to bring the best of their technology capabilities around security, and we'll bring our experience around an industry and the potential sort of gap areas, marry that together to ensure that we help our clients have a sort of safe or safer environment. But yeah, cybersecurity is a massive threat, John. I think the other thing that's interesting in the recent research we found was that AI is actually now a top contributor to technical debt. And when you think of technical debt, you think of things like mainframes and, oh my gosh, it's old. You've got COBOL language and I don't have any developers. So it sort of sits there and it becomes this monolithic cost base. And now with Gen AI and with AI, we can actually now take all those technologies, apply it to things like mainframes and sort of modernize them. But because the technology is moving so fast, oftentimes you can actually use it wrong, or the standards are not right, or whatever it is. And so it helps you, but then it's actually bad code, or sort of you've applied it on a wrong process. You haven't actually reinvented the process, all that sort of stuff, and you still have that technical debt. It's a different form of risk, but it's definitely an area. In addition to cybersecurity, it's definitely an area that we're encouraging our clients to be sort of really thinking about that as they build their digital cores, as they sort of boost their investments in their estate. We're having them boost to think about that sort of strategic investment, but then importantly, how they balance their investments and ensure that they address not just the new, but really that sort of technical debt. So it's a number of areas, and it's a fascinating space. I'm never bored. If anything, I wake up every day wondering, oh my gosh, what's going on? And you're absorbing as fast as you can, and I'm ever glad.
Well, give us, since you're much more of an expert than I am, and most of our listeners, give us a little bit about what's going on. Like, we look down from a linear perspective. I look down a hallway and I see what I see down the hallway. But they say great leaders and people with really super intelligence in a sector can see around the corner. Give us a little bit about what's to come around the corner in the coming months and years ahead from what you've heard or see or have anecdotal or both scientific knowledge of.
Well, I think sometimes back to our sports analogies, the great leaders maybe don't see around the corner, but they know there's a corner coming. And so they're getting ready. And that's why we say it is we can't predict the future.
Right.
But that's why we say it is just so critically important to build that digital core, because it gets you to a point where you are reinvention ready. You can now adjust, you can pivot, you're very clear on your infrastructure, you're very clear on how to, you can see and control the observability and the visibility of your estate. You're very clear on where your data is, where your AI is, what your security postures are. You're very clear. And if something hits you, you now know where the position of your players on the field, and you can adjust accordingly. And that's our key focus. And so we've released chapter 1 of our digital core. We've got chapter 2 coming out, I think, in the early autumn. that will look a little bit more at some of those people aspects, the culture, and all of that. And we're just super excited because we also think that you can get your systems ready, you can get your processes ready, but you won't win unless you get your people ready.
Andy, I'm going to take you out of your Accenture Cloud First hat right now, and I'm going to put you in the husband and dad and global citizen hat. And
wow, okay,
and yeah, which is as we know, very.
Now you're getting me uncomfortable.
and you look like someone. And we haven't spent time together, but today, just spending this time together, you look like you've mastered people either master fear or fear overcomes them. And you seem to have mastered overcoming any fear things that have come your way in this world. So when you're talking to your children or your spouse and they're asking you, Dad, what about this? What about that? And is Musk right or Altman right? Is AI going to be dangerous to us in 2029? Or is there going to be machine learning that actually is then smarter and have more intelligence than human beings? Or is Altman right? We're going to use it for the greater good? Or is a combination thereof more right? Where are we supposed to be afraid of AI or have a healthy fear of it? Or are we supposed to be leaning in and embracing it and learning everything we can about it and just saying there's nothing to fear but fear itself because we don't even know where we're going to end up with it? How do you balance the fear mongering that's going on about AI and the beauty and all the great things, as you already know from your business hat, AI can really do and new technology can really do for both an organization and for the world at large and for even just your family members who get to enjoy using it to make more interesting and better lives and better education for themselves?
I'll answer it by staying out of my cloud world.
Good.
My daughter is a competitive soccer player. She's, in a week's time, the U20 Women's World Cup kicks off. And she's going to be a part of that. She's going to compete in that.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
And so I have every single day an element of fear questioning coming at me. It's, oh my gosh, Dad, what do I do in this situation?
Right.
This team that we're about to play is, top 5 in the world, whatever it is.
Right.
And I again don't have the answers, but what I do know from my years of sort of being African in Africa, being European in Europe, and now being American in America with a multinational family is you just have to lean in to the change, lean in to the differences, lean into the perceived fear, and give it a go. You can just keep calm and carry on. Is the old British saying,
right?
And to try and do it with a little bit of swagger, because if you stand still, you've already lost.
Wow. What's your daughter's name, by the way?
Alex Tay.
Alex Tay. So yeah. Where's this soccer? Where's the World Cup going to be happening that we can watch?
It's in Bogota, Colombia.
And Dad, are you going? Dad, are you going to be down there?
Yeah, that is right now. My main goal, my main aspiration is the next 168 hours of work. I'm doing it with full on fever. And then after that, I'm on a plane to Bogota and I'm going to lose my voice cheering on my daughter.
Alex Tay. Well, we're going to be rooting for her. And one thing, Andy, is I love having great people and that represent great brands, iconic brands like you on the show. And what I typically do is I invite them on. I say, listen, you come on and, when we talk about sustainability, I say sustainability is a journey with no finish line. Well, the same can be said about what you're doing at Accenture Cloud First. You and I know this is an evolution. There is no finish line. It's so exciting. It's ever changing. So what I offer to you and what I would love for you to do is a year from now, 6 months from now, whenever it makes sense, I want you to come back on and you and I will pick up from where we left off today. And then you're going to be able to share with our audience, our listeners and our viewers, what's changed since we spoke last and the evolution, and we get to track it a little bit, because I think that tracking is really important for everybody out there, because everyone's trying to make sense of this now. This is such a critical and important topic, and it truly has to go to the future health of our organizations, especially the organizations that you get to advise around the world. So Andy, thank you not only for your time today, but thank you and all your colleagues at Accenture for making the world a better and more resilient place. Thanks again for everything you do.
Thanks, John. It's been a joy, and it'll be my pleasure to come back and spend time with you. It's an absolute joy. Thank you so much.
This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by Engage. Engage is a digital booking platform revolutionizing the talent booking industry. With thousands of athletes, celebrities, entrepreneurs, and business leaders, Engage is the go-to spot for booking talent, for speeches, custom experiences, live streams, and much more. For more information on Engage or to book talent today, visit letsengage.com. This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by ERI. ERI has a mission to protect people, the planet, and your privacy, and is the largest fully integrated IT and electronics asset disposition provider and cybersecurity-focused hardware destruction company in the United States, and maybe even the world. For more information on how ERI can help your business properly dispose of outdated electronic hardware devices, please visit eridirect.com.